Oh, it's a cinematic view on a cinematic day. How are we looking? How are we feeling? Welcome back, everyone, to the Rebel Outpost. I'm so glad you are here today. And I want to talk to you about how traveling and being a nomad prepared me for what I believe to be living out in the woods and building my own homestead that I call the Rebel Outpost. That's exactly right. The Rebel Outpost is a byproduct of my experiences from traveling. All right, guys, I came back up the hill because the lighting was better. I wanted it to look as good as possible for you guys. So a byproduct of traveling, what do I mean? Well, if you don't know, about 9 or 10 years ago, excuse me, maybe longer than that, probably 15 or 18 years ago, I started traveling on adventure motorcycles. I saw one, then I got on adventurerider.net, and I realized that you could get a motorcycle and a tent and a sleeping bag and a water bottle and freeze-dried food and just get out on the road. And I did that. Slowly but surely, I learned how to ride a motorcycle. I went and took a course in North Georgia from a one-on-one instructor. It was a 2-day course and I did okay. He said I did good, but he took me out on the road and I just don't think I was ready. And then luckily I worked with someone that had a motorcycle and they helped me learn how to ride. And they taught me to ride to look at the sights and enjoy the scenery and not be a race car or a motorcycle racer. And that was very helpful and it kept me safe. And so once I got on my motorcycle, I knew I wanted to go far distances. So that's what I did. I started doing regional trips. I rode up to Fontana Dam and Asheville and different places. And then I kept pushing the envelope. First trip was to Florida. And over 9 years on 5 different BMW motorcycles, I rode 109,000 miles. Most of those were adventure miles, meaning I was traveling both off-road and on-road to get to a destination and seeing the sights and eating the food along the way. And then I decided motorcycling was a little too dangerous with the drivers and the way people started driving. You started seeing more people texting and driving. That was a newer thing. And it was wild to me to see that, but it was what it was. And I said, you know, I'm going to stop motorcycling and I'm going to start Airstreaming. I didn't exactly know I was going to Airstream, but I was in Fort Lauderdale and I was petering back up and I went through Tampa and I was waiting at a Cracker Barrel and there was an Airstream dealer, RV dealer next door. And I walked in, I saw an Airstream base camp and I said, I got to have that. That's what I bought. And then I had to get rid of my police car that I had, my police interceptor, and get a Gladiator, the most fun vehicle I ever had. Close second though was the police interceptor and the Dodge Challenger. Man, those Challengers were amazing. Too bad they're electric now, right? That's so ridiculous. So I got set up and I started traveling in RVs and I thought, man, this is pretty good. And I got out on the road and I had done a little research, but one thing about me, I always travel without doing a lot of research. I just go. Like there is vacationing. Oh, if you see that strap, it's because we're rocking the chest holster today out here in the homestead at the Rebel Outpost. But I don't do a lot of research. I just get out and travel. And I figure if you want to have an adventure, then you're going to just have to go. And that's what I did. And I'll share some stories one day maybe about how those adventures unfolded along the journey. I might call them Dove-ventures, David and Adventure. But I get out in the Airstream and I'm traveling. It goes well. I have some issues, but I meet a lot of people just like I did with motorcycling. Not as many, and the relationships were not as quality, but I met a lot of people and I saw all of the sights, right, that I wanted to see. You go to the national parks, you go to Glacier, you go to Yellowstone, you go to the Adirondacks, you go up to Maine, you go to Key West, you go wherever you want to go, and you see these things, and then you start boondocking, camping without services. And that's what I did. And I thought, oh, this is a way to beat the system. And when I say beat the system, I mean beat my system, right? Like if you could camp for free, like that would be the ultimate. And I'd heard stories of it and I had done it once or twice on a motorcycle. And I thought, I'm going to will myself out into the woods or around the country, and I am just going to camp and be a nomad. And in my brain and in my head, I really just thought I could go on for 10 or 12 years like that. I thought I can just do this indefinitely, travel, stay for free. Here's the part where I don't know if it was a God thing or if I'm getting older or if it's the way the world is, but over time, I started noticing the interactions with human beings, which is a big reason why I travel. Those interactions started being less and less enjoyable. You go to the gym, no big deal. I know people are there to work, but you used to could talk to people. You used to could say hello to a girl and they would be chatty. Not anymore. Headphones on, no girls are talking. Now, I will say the older generation, they're always friendly and they love to chat, but the girls weren't as friendly. And you go in restaurants and it's just, instead of being as friendly, it's almost like you're just a number, get in, get out and go. Hotels, the prices began to increase in hotels and campgrounds. And it just started feeling more and more odd. And also I had some experiences where one night I was camping, or one day I was camping in the national forest and it had a limit. And I met a friend outside of Leadville, Colorado, and you could only stay there, I think, 18 days. And him and I and his dog, Atlas, we were all hanging out. He had a dirt bike and I had a Jeep and we would go explore together. And on the morning of the 19th day, I get a knock on the door with an armed federal agent telling me that I have been there more than 18 days and why am I there? And what was interesting was my good friend who was staying in the national forest right next to me, he had been there 3 days longer than me. So why did this guy single me out? And why was he coming over to bother me? I had a clean Airstream. I had everything neat. I had my Jeep clean. My site was organized. I only was camping with my one buddy whom I'd met who was local. And there were people with tarps and like laundry setups with the line across the trees. They were there the entire time. And so you see this government overreach and you see the way that things are going, at least I saw it. And so I was out in Utah and it was cold and my Craftsman generator broke down. And at this point, I'd traveled probably for about 3 or 4 years on and off in my Airstream, the base camp and this, maybe 5 years. And I just decided, I said, I'm not having fun anymore. I'm cold. My stuff is breaking down. You have to hook up and haul. And don't get me wrong, I really enjoy pulling an RV. I really enjoy driving the Jeep, getting 8.5 miles to the gallon, sometimes 10 if I was lucky. But ultimately, it started being less fun, and mainly because of the cost and because of the people. I mean, that's the truth. I hate to say it, but the people were what made it less and less fun. They just were not as friendly. And so I decided that I needed to come home. So I did just that. The world is changing rapidly. I'm going to switch gears and I am going to go back to my home state for a pause, for a reset, for a base camp connection. I am going to see some people I need to see, take care of some business, some stuff with the Airstream. Nothing's broke, but just handle a few things. The Jeep actually had a major oil leak. I came home and I was beginning to think about community and life and how it's nice when people know you and they help you and you have that sort of community. But then when I came home, I realized it didn't exist that much. It wasn't there as much as I wanted it to be. So I decided to look for a homestead, which I did. Now, the lessons of being able to live with less is one of the lessons from traveling, right? That was something, being a nomad helped me prepare for this. I was used to being hot. I was used to being cold. I was used to being in small showers. I was used to having to use a small bathroom or find a bathroom. I was used to having to make food on the go and not have a lot of refrigerator space. So all this prepared me to build a homestead from the ground up. Now you might not have to do that if you could get out there and you could buy a cabin or you could buy a place that's already kind of set up. But I had to. I had to buy something that needed to be built. It was within my budget. That's what I could afford. And I had the Airstream, which you can see behind me. And that gave me a leg up, in my opinion. It gave me the advantage. I backed in to the whole project. Instead of building house and cabin first, I did everything completely reverse. I started with a small gravel pad and then I started building a tool shed. And then I started with the garden and then I got the well and then I started preparing for chickens. So I did it all in reverse without actually having a house or a cabin. because that to me seemed the quickest way to get set up and be ready for whatever may come. And ultimately my goal is being self-sufficient. So living as a nomad out on the road, you have to be self-sufficient. You carry a generator, you carry water purifier, you take those things with you so you're prepared. And by sleeping in the national forest and trying to survive out there, once you get squared away on your own plot of land, then those lessons that you learn from being on the road, like being self-sufficient or building a fire or finding a spot to camp or dealing with breakdowns or meeting new people, all those things played into me wanting to be in one place. And now as I'm out here on the property, I'm feeling that I do not want to travel anymore. I do not want to go anywhere in this moment. Will I travel again? I do have the desire to travel, but not at the moment. I have the desire to travel in the future, and then that will be solely based on whether or not this country of ours survives. This will be based on how do the next 4 or 5 years go. Both for me, how much do I get done here? I'm focused on self-sufficiency. You can see my greenhouse over here. I want to greatly improve my crops. I want to greatly improve my honey production, my apiary size. I want to increase my skills and knowledge. My neighbor the other night just shot a deer and I helped him track it through the woods. You got to get neighbors like this if you can. I get a text message after a phone call that I missed because I'm trying to stay away from my phone. Break your phone addiction. If you can, I can't. I'm working on it. But suddenly I get a text message. I pull the phone out and I look at it and it says, "Hey bud, I'm trekking towards your house, tracking a deer. Don't shoot me." You know you've got good neighbors when they warn you because they don't want to get shot. And you know you're living right on your land when they know that you might shoot them if they're coming up in the middle of the night. I would never shoot a neighbor, but if a guy's coming through the woods into your property in the dark out here, these folks don't take lightly to that. And I like having those kind of neighbors. So being on the road and covering all those miles and sleeping in Walmart parking lots, which you can see those in some videos, you make the best of it, but you have to adapt. And ultimately, while I'm out there, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I sleeping in a Walmart parking lot? The adventure side of it is completely fun in the beginning. It's fun to be in an RV. It's fun to be in a van. And I'm not deterring anybody from traveling or chasing that dream. But ultimately, the reason that most civilizations did not stay nomads is because it is easier, it is safer, and it is more enjoyable to build a foundation on a permanent place. Now, the nuclear family is almost destroyed. Community is not what it once was, and I completely understand that, and that is hard. But the only thing I know to do is to purchase some land, buy that land, and then begin to put the sweat equity and your dollar bills, invest it into it. And then you'll have a place that is secure and safe, and you can lead by example and begin to build a micro community. So that's what I started doing. So all the lessons I learned while traveling, all the fun I had in the adventures were great, and they built up and stacked so I could get to this point. And also those years of traveling on motorcycle and meeting all kinds of people, stories I might share one day in another format, but all the people I met and the seat time I got both in the Jeep and on my motorcycles, I got it out of my system. So if you think you want to travel, then I highly recommend doing it. This is not a message of be scared and don't go out there. I'm just at a stage in life where I've seen what I wanted to see. I stayed where I wanted to stay, and there wasn't another new restaurant or waterfall or Jeep trail or anything that was going to make me feel better than building my own homestead that I call the Rebel Outpost. Because that way I have a consistent and stable setup that can support my lifestyle, and then I can use that to help others and bring others in if need be, friends and family and animals, and do that sort of thing. So this merger, me merging from NoMaD into homesteader to Rebel Outpost builder was a natural one, but it was not an easy one. So don't think that if you go out on the road and you travel for a while, you're going to garner all the skills you need to have a homestead. No, I think what you're going to find ultimately is that if you're a traveler, first you do it for adventure. First, you want to see things and meet people and have great stories to tell, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. But then ultimately, you begin to feel like you want one of two things, or both. You want community or you want family. whether that's your immediate family, wife, husband, and kids, or you just want mom, dad, sister, cousins around, or maybe you just are a solo man or woman, you're living in the woods or you're living in an apartment and you just want to have some familiar faces. There's something to be said about community, and it saddens me greatly to see that that doesn't exist, but we as individuals can build that back up. So would I recommend traveling? Right now, that's a personal decision. I don't want to travel. I want to build, I want to grow, and I want to learn. But I don't think I would be here if I didn't travel. So pull your answer from that. If you're an RVer, Airstreamer, please continue to follow this channel. I really appreciate you guys. If you're a Jeeper, I'm gonna do more Jeeping. If you like old Chevys, I got the square body. If you like dogs, gardens, and bees, I've got you covered. It's a journey, it's an adventure. I'm having a lot of fun with this YouTube channel, and I cannot thank you guys enough. So stay strong, stay wild, stay free. I'll see you on the next video.